Indian exports can face a tariff of up to 500% in the US market. Hello students, welcome to Drishti IAS. In today's session, let us analyze this new move of the United States. Now before we do that, let me just tell you that we have this new course for you, which is the Studio GS Foundation live online course. Here, as you know, that you're going to get a complete coverage of your UPSC prelims and main syllabus in only rupees 24,999. And the admissions to this course are already open. For an additional discount over this 24,999, please use my coupon code, which is SALONI, Saloni, SALONI in capital letters only, and you can get an additional discount on this 24,999 rupees. And this course is going to be extremely beneficial for all the students who wish to join our offline foundation batch, because this complete fee is going to be adjusted in our offline foundation batch. So please hurry up and call us at 87501 for more information, and you can also visit the Drishti Learning app website. Now let's see what is happening in the US. So the US Congress has passed a bill, and that bill has been named Sanctioning Russia Act of 2025. So this bill is nothing but basically a move to penalize all the countries who continue to keep buying cheap Russian oil, because the US feels that Russia uses this money to basically fund its military operations in the Ukraine. So let's see what is going to happen in here. Right now, this bill is going to be implemented if the US believes that Russia is acting in bad faith. Now, what do you understand by bad faith? This basically means that if the US thinks that Russia is not holding peace talks with Ukraine, if Russia tries to escalate the situation, escalate its military operations in the Ukraine, then in those cases, this bill can be implemented, and US will have this discretion to implement the bill, Sanctioning Russia Act of 2025. Now, what is going to happen? What actions will the US take? So several things are going to happen. Some things are problematic for countries like India and China. Let's talk about all the things here. Firstly, punishment of Russian leaders and supporters. So this basically means that Russian leaders will not be allowed to visit US. There can be a travel ban, a visa ban, and if these leaders hold any property, any asset on the US soil, that can also be seized. So this can be the first action. Then there will be massive tariffs on Russian goods. So all the Russian exports to the US market will also face a tariff of at least 500%. 500% or above tariff on Russian exports. Then punishment of other countries trading with Russia. This is the clause where it gets problematic for countries like India and China, because other countries are also going to be penalized for buying oil from Russia. Here also these countries can face the same tariff of at least 500% or above. Sanctions on Russian banks also. Now we know that the US dollar basically dominates the global money market, because majority of the transactions, they happen in US dollar. That is why the US Treasury will have this authority to block those transactions coming from Russian banks, to hold those accounts, to freeze those accounts. These are also some actions that can be taken by the US government. Then a ban on US energy exports to Russia. So whatever energy exports are happening to Russia, they will also stop from the US. So no selling, no reselling, no transferring of energy or energy related products to Russia. These are all the actions that US can take if it feels that Russia is acting in bad faith. It is acting against Ukraine. And this will be a problematic situation for India, particularly India. Both India and China maintain a trade surplus with the US, but it is going to be more problematic for India if we analyze the entire situation over here. So even though we have a trade surplus with the US, we don't hold a lot of economic leverage. So basically our industries, majorly like the textile industry, IT industry, our pharma industry, they are going to suffer the most because they will face this tariff of at least 500% or above. Now, why China holds a little leverage over here? Because China has a monopoly when it comes to rare earth minerals. So it has a monopoly in rare earth minerals. Now processing and everything, all those facilities are also included or also available in the US, but largely overall China holds this monopoly in the entire world. So that is why China still has some leverage, but India does not have that amount of an economic leverage. So that is why majorly we'll have to depend on our diplomacy. Now, what is going to be the way forward for India? First and foremost, I already told you, there need to be dialogues, proper dialogues and diplomacy over here. Till now, we have not been able to seize an FTA with the US. So we'll have to accelerate those efforts so that proper dialogues can happen, proper FTA can be signed, and then these tariffs can be brought down to zero. Next, we also need to look for alternative options. We need to diversify. Now, you know, the entire global dynamics, global political situation is very dynamic. We know the unrest that is happening in Venezuela also. Majorly, India does not have a long-term implication in Venezuela's case because we import only 0.3% of our oil from Venezuela. But with Russia, the case is different because we import somewhere around 35 to 40% of our oil from Russia. So we will have to start looking for alternative options here as well, because if these sanctions are imposed, then it is going to get very problematic for India, very costly for India to import all these items and to basically export goods to the US. So we need to look for other markets like other Middle Eastern countries, some African countries also, South American countries also, and diversify our options. Then we need to strengthen our own domestic reserves. The Atmanirbhar Bharat vision that India has, we need to start working more aggressively in that direction. We need to depend more on our domestic reserves. Now, this will take a lot of time. Of course, this is a long-term effort that we need to make. But in the short term, we can also think of enhancing the capacity of our strategic petroleum reserves. Strategic petroleum reserves which we have in Visakhapatnam, in Mangalore, in Padur, we can basically think of enhancing their capacity so that they can back at least 90 to 100 days of import. They can cover at least 90 to 100 days of oil import, which is not the case right now. So we can look for these options of increasing the capacity of our strategic petroleum reserves to basically absorb these shocks that we keep getting in the global market. So domestic capacity strengthening is one option, and most importantly, we need to reduce our dependence on oil and petrol. We basically need to move towards cleaner energy, cleaner, greener energy options. The transition that we are wanting to make, we need to enhance our efforts in that direction. We need to rely more on renewable sources of energy so that overall this entire situation does not affect us that much. Right now we are heavily dependent on our fossil imports. That's why it gets very problematic when such sanctions are imposed on India. That's why we need to keep on enhancing or accelerating our efforts so that the vision that we have to go green, this vision can be brought into reality at a much faster pace, because the situation in the world is not great at the moment, and such sanctions which when they are exposed on countries, they basically keep on telling us that you can't really rely on one country, you can't really think of one country as your major ally over here. When these sanctions are imposed by the US basically is trying to dominate the entire market. It is trying to emerge as the only superpower in the world, which is not the case. Right now we have a multipolar world, it is not a unipolar world. That is why we need to ensure that our options are diversified, we are Atmanirbhar, we are self-reliant in our reserves also, and we are moving towards better technology. So that was all for this video. Let us see if the bill is implemented, if the clauses of the bill are implemented. This again is a developing story. We will keep covering this. Now, Let us look at a practice question for prelims. With reference to the recently proposed US sanctions legislation targeting Russia, consider the following statements. 1. The bill proposes imposing tariffs of at least 500% on imports from Russia if it is found to be violating or refusing a peace agreement with Ukraine. 2. The bill empowers the US Treasury to impose asset-blocking sanctions on Russian state-owned financial institutions and entities dealing with them. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? 1. One only. 2. Two only. 3. Both 1 and 2. 4. Neither 1 nor 2. Please attempt this question and provide your answers in the comment section. Thank you for watching.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.